Welcome to Apaga University. I'm Inga.
And I'm Julie. We are two
momtrepreneurs
who have built an in-home care business from the ground up, guided every step of the way by God's care and fueled by agape love.
16 years later and over 100 podcast episodes already under our belts, we invite you to continue on this journey with us as we share stories that resonate, insights that inspire, and practical guidance that empowers you to face any obstacle along this path.
Whether you're a professional caregiver, a family member, or are simply curious about what your steps will be when you need them, you have come to the right place.
Oh, hey, and while you're here, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And after that, make sure you send this to a friend.
Yes, do it. All right, we'll quit fooling around and get to it.
Let's go. Class is in session.
Hello, Sunshines, and hello, Julie.
Oh, hello, Inga.
How are you?
Let's just jump right in.
Yeah, we're doing this, man. Dude, the sun is shining today.
It's so beautiful out.
So beautiful. And
yeah.
it's great because it's going to melt all the snow and just make a big mud puddle on the farm.
That is so bad.
So happy about it.
So bad.
Is it not the smelliest time of year
Oh,
on the farm?
good gosh. Yeah. No. It's, you don't even want anybody to come over because you're like, we stink.
I know. And I feel like on our sheep farm, I feel really bad for the neighbors because I come home from work, open the door, get punched in the face with the smell of sheep. And we try.
Oh, funny.
Man.
Let me tell you a story about animal poo.
Oh, good.
So there was one time mom and dad were really involved in the Angus Association. Mm-hmm. And so they would do a yearly thing where they'd take buses and go to different
nice.
Angus ranches and have everybody look at their farms and how they run things mm-hmm. and all of that. And mother always was the hostess with the mostest, of course. And so she was always, it'd be lunchtime. So she would be making, sloppy joes for hundreds of people or whatever. Anyway, so there was this young kid that got off the bus at our place and took a smell. He goes, "It stinks." Well, ironic is that kid actually came from a pig farm background.
Oh.
So he thought cow poo smelt. And you know how the majority of people in the world think that a pig, there ain't nothing stinkier than a pig.
Yeah.
So anyway, but my dad always said, may smell like crap to you, but it's bread and butter to me.
Funny. I was thinking, smells like money.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I, if I were to rank them, pig poop is the worst smelling one.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Man, it's so bad. And did I ever tell you the story about when we were getting on an airplane and in Missoula? So we drive down there. We had time to spare. So we're like, oh, we'll go to the FFA, Missoula Egg Center. And our oldest daughter, Sammy, was going to be getting a pig from there. So we're like, we'll just go check it out and, kill some time. And it was in the middle of January. So we go into this big farrowing barn, whatever, spend some time in there, leave, get into the vehicle, and just about lose our minds because we're like, oh my God, we stink so bad, and we have to get on an airplane. Oh, no. It was the most traumatic thing I
because it's in your nose.
Oh my gosh. And it just sticks to you.
Did anybody look at you
Oh,
weird?
they all did. We're like, oh, it's us. We're sorry. Bad decision making.
Oh no.
So bad. It was just Anyway, so that's your tip for the day. Don't go look at pigs before you have to get on an airplane.
That's awesome one.
It really does. Yeah, it's bad.
Oh, too funny.
Anyway.
Oh, funny stuff.
Well, man, I am loving this this sunshine, and
it helps the attitude. It's been pretty inversional around this place, and man, it's shocking what it will do to your attitude, dude.
It also improves my attitude a lot when I get to basically drive to work and it's starting to get light out. And then when we leave the office, it's still light out.
Yes.
That is just huge.
All of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we do have a fairly heavy topic.
That's why I'm kind of being light right now, because we'll bog ourselves down here really soon.
I know. But I do love the verse that you brought for us today. This is Luke chapter 1, verse 37. And it says, "For nothing will be impossible with God."
Yeah.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely true.
Yeah. What we're talking today is actually spinal cord injuries. Mm-hmm. And that is a really tough topic. But I also have some inspiration at the end about that very topic through a documentary I just watched. But as I was looking at verses, and that one came up about nothing is impossible.
Right.
This whole podcast we're going to talk about is really actually inspirational, because not only to those that may be going through something very, very traumatic with their bodies or whatever, but also everybody that's able-bodied.
Yes.
Really, truly, are you doing to what God's gifts gave you? Are you working hard enough with an able body? Because some of the things that people do that live on after a spinal cord injury,
it's amazing.
Make a lot of us look really bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People that have this traumatic event and then like an ongoing, long-term, lifelong, I guess, injury because of it. And then they go on to do just amazing things.
Yes.
And then there are lots of us that are just bumps on logs and don't do anything.
With the whole body full of ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you, I think I'll actually go ahead and play my good news story. And it goes along with that theme of like nothing is impossible with God.
Great.
And so
Good.
it's actually from TikTok, and love it or hate it, I'm on the good side of TikTok. Nothing dark comes up on mine. So let me get this going for us.
I said to God, I don't think you're real, but if I'm wrong, prove it. 2 weeks come and go. I didn't even remember praying that prayer. There was zero faith attached to my prayer. And as I was dialing a phone off behind me to my left, I audibly heard the voice of God. And the 2 words he spoke to me were, call Mom. I didn't hesitate. Phone rang 6 times, 7 times. On the 8th ring, my mother answered the telephone, and when she said hello, instantly I knew something was terribly wrong. When I hear God say to me, call Mom, and I did so, my mother was attempting suicide. Ran out of my office, jumped into my car, drove Interstate 75 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I drove up this interstate, and I talked to this God I did not know. God, help! I can't save my mom, but you can. My mom was barely alive, and she came down some stairs. She fell into my arms. I picked her up. I carried her to her car. I drove her to Park Ridge Hospital. And as we drove, she looked over at me. She says, Dean, I can't be dying. And I said, Mom, hang on. You're not going to die, but you're going to have to choose to live. I get her to a hospital. A doctor threw me against the wall. They rushed her to the emergency room. 45 minutes later, this doctor walks across the ER. But this doctor has the most perplexed look on his face, and he said, Mr. Sykes, there's no medical reason to tell you this at all. It is a, quote, miracle of God. You can go see her. I looked straight up to heaven. I was like, you're real? I took a walk that day. I could take you to the spot in Park Ridge Hospital where I leaned against the wall, and I had an encounter with Jesus.
Wow.
Nothing is impossible with God.
Wow. Wow. Well, besides that whole story, the thing that really struck me was one of the very first things he said is that he had zero faith attached to the prayer. Holy cow. That makes you think about the prayers that you give. Are you really just saying a prayer, or are you putting your belief into that prayer?
Right. Well, I think a lot of times we, myself included, people in general, just go through the motions of it.
Yeah.
And you're saying it because you're supposed to say your prayers, right? But
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have a book, and I'll have to bring it for you guys. It's, you know, how they have those algebra for dummies and this and that for dummies. They have prayers for dummies.
Oh my gosh.
And so I picked it up because it was at the book fair at church.
Oh.
And I thought I've never gotten to read it, but I've always meant to, because I always feel like I kind of say the same prayer over and over.
Right.
But for this guy to...
Yeah, say, I didn't even believe in you, and there was no faith attached to it. And
Yeah.
then look what happened.
Yeah. And then
God
he was
showed
like,
up.
oh,
Jesus
wow,
showed up.
you are real.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I love that. I'm going to have to find what you do. I don't get on TikTok, though.
Yeah.
I get on Insta.
Yeah. Well,
It's
a
probably
lot of
on
them
there
come
too.
up there too. And then sometimes people like Alyssa send me inspirational things as well.
Alyssa,
So
send them to me. I need inspiration too. That was a cool one. I love that so much.
Yeah. Very cool.
And mine is basically speaking back to the impossible as well. A grandmother graduates 60 years after she began college, and they planned a moving tribute to her. And basically, this little lady, she had to leave college because she had become pregnant with their first child with her husband. And she had been one of the 6 women studying animal sciences where she was going to college at the time. 6 decades after she left university, she went back and graduated with a bachelor's with honors in animal sciences in December of 2023. As she walked onto the stage, a member of the university told the crowd that today our class of veterinary students numbers are 200. About 80% of them are women.
Wow.
In 1960, they continued that number was just 6. And one of these students still waits for her degree, and today she will get it.
Oh.
Her name was Angela Davidson.
Good for you, Angela Davidson.
Yeah, she said, the speaker said that the university was unable to support her at the time she was pregnant in class, but explained to the gathered audience that she not only entered a happy family life, but had also had a very successful professional life. But on the day of her graduation, Angela was surrounded by her children and grandchildren.
Oh,
isn't that cool?
I bet they were so proud of her.
Isn't that something?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
lifelong learning.
Nothing is impossible.
Nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, you guys, if you have not subscribed, please go do that. We are Apaga University nowadays.
Yes, we
And
are.
we like it. We love our new name and our new look.
We do.
Yes. And you can email your good news stories, your verses, if there's something that you're just called to send to us. You can email those to Inga@apagahomecare.com or Julie@epagahomecare.com.
There you go.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And let's just go ahead and start talking about spinal cord injuries.
Right, spinal cord injuries. So basically, a spinal cord injury involves damage to any part of the spinal cord. It can also damage to nerves at the end of the spinal cord, known as the cauda equina. The spinal cord sends and receives signals between the brain and the rest of the body. A spinal cord injury often causes permanent changes in strength, feeling, and other body functions below the site of the injury. People who have had a spinal cord injury also may experience mental, emotional, and social side effects. Many scientists are optimistic that advances in research will someday make repair of spinal cord injuries possible. And research is ongoing around the world. In the meantime, treatments and rehab allow with many people with spinal cords to lead productive, independent lives.
Yep. It can be pretty devastating, and it's not just the physical injury of it.
Oh,
like
no.
it's saying that
There's
emotional,
the
that
whole
mental health,
side
that
of it
social
that
side.
is strictly mental. Yeah.
So symptoms, and just so you know, we're taking some information from Mayo Clinic as well as Help, Hope, and Live. So we've got some great information that Julie's pulled together for us. But symptoms. So the ability to control your arms and legs after a spinal cord injury depends on 2 factors. One factor is where the injury occurred on the spinal cord, and then the other factor is how bad the injury is. The lowest part of the spinal cord not damaged after an injury is known as the neurological level of injury. The completeness of the injury refers to how much feeling, known as sensation, is lost. So completeness is actually classified as either complete, and this is if all feeling and ability to control movement are lost below the spinal cord injury, then the injury would be called complete. An incomplete injury is if some feeling and control of movement remain below the affected area. That would be called an incomplete injury. And there are varying degrees of incomplete injury. So we wanted to kind of talk to you about levels of spinal cord injury. So go ahead, Julie.
Yes. So the spinal cord is divided into 4 sections: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. So you can envision the little top. There's 4 sections.
Yep.
So the cervical spine is in the neck and controls the arms, hands, and shoulders. An injury to the cervical spine can cause paralysis in all 4 limbs, which is the quadriplegic, or in just the arms and hands, which is diplegia. Thoracic spine is the section of the spinal cord in the chest and controls the trunk and abdomen. An injury to the thoracic spine can cause paralysis in the legs.
Thoracic spine.
Paraplegia. Lumbar spine. This section of the spinal cord is the lower back and controls the feet and legs. An injury to the lumbar spine is also causes paraplegia. Sacral spine is the base of the spine and controls bladder, bowel, and sexual function. An injury to the sacral spine can cause loss of bladder and bowel control as well as sexual dysfunction. So just depends on where they are. So the cervical spine is C1 through 4. And then if they all have numbers.
Right. Yep. So there's like the letter to show the area, and then the number of what,
right,
where they fall. And basically where the injury happens in your spine is going to basically dictate what function you lose, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So remind me, we had an incredible case of impossible turning to possible with one of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
She had been snowmobiling
Mm-hmm.
and she had an internal decapitation.
Yeah.
And so with that, she then was not able to do anything
Right.
for herself. However, through therapies and such, she's now doing so much better.
I don't know that she has any ongoing spinal. I think she's recovered from it and she has use of everything.
Yeah. So she's a miracle, a walking
Absolute
miracle. And because when she first came on with us, it was a very grim
Right.
situation.
Well, think about that. An internal decapitation.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? It's so hard for me to even wrap my mind around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically we were able to, she was able to rehabilitate herself with some help from our caregivers and a lot of other medical things. But it's unexplainable.
No,
really.
And it's shocking just how amazing
Mm-hmm.
and lucky this sweet little lady was. She was very young. She was in her
Really
early 20s, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's
Amazing.
an example of one that's a little bit different than this, but man, oh man,
Yeah.
incredibly tough.
So loss of feeling and control of movement is also known as paralysis, and paralysis from a spinal cord injury can be referred to as a tetraplegia, also known as quadriplegia. This means that your arms, hands, trunk, legs, and pelvic organs are affected by your spinal cord injury. There is paraplegia, and this paralysis affects all or part of the trunk, legs, and pelvic organs, but not the arms. Yeah. So your healthcare team performs a series of tests to determine the neurological level and completeness of your injury. And spinal cord injuries can cause the following symptoms. So loss of movement, loss of or a change in sensation. And that would be including the change or the ability to feel heat, cold, and touch, loss of bowel and bladder control, exaggerated reflex activities or spasms, changes in sexual function, sexual sensitivity, and fertility, pain and or an intense stinging sensation caused by the damage to the nerve fibers in the spinal cord, and then trouble breathing, coughing, or clearing secretions from the lungs.
So I have always had a fascination with the old bump bugs, the old Volkswagens.
Oh,
right? I've always loved
bump
them.
bugs?
Yes, that's what we called them. And then you had to hit your sister
Oh,
really hard.
That's so funny because we called them slug bugs.
Okay, bump bugs, slum. Yeah. So
I had one in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. So I heard one time that, of course, they didn't have the greatest heating, right?
Terrible. I can attest to that.
And I heard a story one time, and I don't know why it hit me like it did, but there was 3 friends that were in a bump bug, and they were going wherever they were going, and their friend in the middle was a paraplegic, and they put her in the middle to keep warm, and they were all in the front. So you can imagine how tight they were. Well, anyway, they had the heat cranked, but because of her injury, until they started smelling burning,
oh no,
they had no idea that her flesh literally was burning because it was right next to the heater. And so, but she didn't know because she couldn't feel it.
What?
So
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that just froze in my brain always.
Holy
going,
smokes.
if I ever get my bump bug, then I got to tell you, I'm not going to sit that close to the
I have
heater.
to say that I am shocked and appalled to know that the heater even gets that hot because it never did for me.
I know. I thought it had to be a fluke deal.
It had to be.
And I don't even know if it's true, but it was a horror story in my mind.
Oof, duh, man. Yikes. I don't like that.
Yeah. Gosh. Emergency symptoms of a spinal cord after an accident include extreme back pain or pressure in the neck, head or back, weakness, incoordination of loss or control of any part of the body, numbness, tingling, or loss of feeling in the legs, fingers, feet, or toes, loss of bowel or bladder control, trouble with balance and walking, trouble breathing after an injury, and a twisted neck or back. When to see a doctor? Now. Stat.
Yes.
Oh.
Do that right away.
Yeah, it is safe to assume that a person with a spinal injury has one until proved otherwise. That because it's not always immediately obvious. When I took my first responder class, and you are taught that when you go up to any kind of injury, a motor vehicle or whatever,
Yes.
first thing you do is stabilize that neck.
Right. Because
First
you don't
thing.
want to make it worse.
Yeah. Hang on. And like at my motorcycle track,
yeah.
first thing is don't touch their helmet.
Right.
Just make sure they're not wiggling, or just hold them
Right.
still. You let the medical people do those maneuvers.
I know.
Yeah.
That sort of thing gives me nightmares a little. You think about people just pulling the helmet right
Oh,
off.
that's the
and
first
you're
thing
like,
you want to do.
"No,
Get
no,
it
no,
off, get it
no."
off. I'm not comfortable. Well, yeah, we could make it a lot worse for
Yeah.
you. Any sudden movement or turning the head just wrong. But actually, motor vehicle accidents, you literally, one time when I drove up on someone, I had somebody, I said, they said, what do we need me to do? I said, I need you to crawl in the back seat, and I need you to hold her head.
Yeah.
Just hold her until the ambulance gets here, so we can assess everybody else.
Yeah.
Because my biggest worry was that person right then with the sitting there kind of funny.
Right. Because basically numbness and paralysis, it can happen quickly, but it can also happen gradually.
Oh,
so
boy. Yeah.
you do not want to risk making something worse.
Oh, no.
And basically the time between the injury and treatment can be critical. So learning the level of the injury can help determine possible recovery. So don't mess around with it.
Oh,
I mean,
my gosh.
Yeah, do not mess around
That's
with
so
that.
scary. So do not move them. Permanent paralysis and other serious complications can result. Call 911 immediately. Keep the person still. Place heavy towels on both sides of the neck, or hold the neck and head to prevent them from moving until the emergency rises. Provide basic first aid to stop bleeding, making the person comfortable without moving the head or neck. Those are all things
Very,
we've
very,
already
very
said.
important. We're saying it
We keep
15
saying it
different
over
ways.
and over and
Just
over.
stabilize
Do
that
not
head and neck.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though some causes, spinal cord injuries can result from damage to the spinal cord itself, or to the bones that surround the spinal cord, known as the vertebrae. Injuries also may happen as well as a result of damage to the ligaments or the discs of the spinal column. So there's a lot going on in there that can get wrecked, and you want to be careful with that. A sudden traumatic blow to the spine can fracture, dislocate, crush, or compress one or more of the vertebrae. A gunshot or knife wound that penetrates and cuts the spinal cord can also cause a spinal cord injury. And then additional damage usually occurs over days or weeks, and that's because of bleeding, swelling.
I didn't know that.
Fluid acclimation in and around the spinal cord after the injury. Well, you think about it, right? When you first injure yourself, that's not the extent of it, because over time that's going to swell up, it's going to bruise. So it makes sense. You don't think about it, but if you do think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, my thing is probably like what most people think is you just had an accident of some sort and boom.
Right.
But that's like you're saying, actually the body is now got to start fixing.
Right.
So all of the blood rushes to a place and so it causes swelling, all of the things.
It's also important to know that not every spinal cord injury is a result of some type of a trauma.
Right.
It can be arthritis, cancer, inflammation, infections, or disc degeneration of the spine. Those things can also cause spinal cord injuries.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So your brain and the central nervous system. The central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is made of soft tissue and is surrounded by bones called the vertebrae. It extends down from the base of the brain and contains nerve cells and groups of nerves called tracts. These tracts then go to all the different parts of the body. So from clear down to your butt bone, right? And so that's what sends messages to your body. Move like Julie does.
Your brain is actually telling you to do that?
I think that's an uncontrollable thing, but
have you ever seen the like a poster of your nervous system? How everything branches
I don't know
off
who
and
figures that stuff out.
I know, and how the different nerves coming out of different vertebrae again impact different things.
Yeah.
So there's something that's telling my hand to move, and it's not the same thing that would be telling my foot to move.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the brain is a pretty amazing.
I don't get it.
Thing.
I'm baffled by the brain, just like I'm baffled by the internet. I don't understand. And faxes, how do they work?
I don't get it.
Even the telephone, if I'm to be honest, I don't understand. I know that it works. I don't know how it works.
Well, just like when I'm sitting next to you in a very important meeting and I send you a funny text, I have to wonder how long before I can see that you're reacting to my text because I don't know how long it's going to take for 2 feet away versus 20 miles or 100 miles.
Yeah, how does it all work?
It's magic.
I guess so. I guess we don't need to know. We just know that it works.
I guess we'll just keep doing home care because we do know home care.
We do know how that works for sure.
Oh my gosh. Common causes of the spinal cord is the motor vehicle.
Yep.
That is the leading cause, almost half of them that happen each year. Falls after age 65, acts of violence. Ugh. And that's gunshot wounds and knife wounds. I wouldn't have thought about those. But sports and recreation activities, I think about those. It's scary. We race motorcycles. Yeah. Rodeo.
I think about that a lot.
Yeah. Diseases like you had said. Risk factors. Now, this one I had no idea.
It's crazy.
But being male is a risk factor. Basically, they are about 80% of the traumatic,
like spinal cord
the
injuries?
spinal cord injuries.
Really, male.
80%.
Also being between the ages of 16 and 30. So more than half of the spinal cord injuries occur in people in the age range between 16 and 30.
A large amount of that is probably risk.
Yes, I'm sure.
No
just
fear.
Feeling invincible.
No
fear.
fear factor.
So, I have to tell you the funniest thing. So our friends Middle Miss that show sheep with us, they have Ryder, who I think Ryder's 9 now. Anyway, he was going on his school field trip to go skiing. And Caitlin was telling me, she's like, Reese has to go because he just has no self-preservation. So Reese has to go to make sure he just doesn't do something like crazy. I thought it was great. So that's true.
Send dad.
Yes, send dad to take care of. So then we had to check in throughout the day. Like, how's everybody doing?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, dad was sure he was going to be just wiped out by the end of the day.
Oh, cute. Try to keep up with your kid.
Oh boy.
Especially with that much energy.
Yeah. So yes, risk for sure.
Alcohol use. It involves about 25% of traumatic brain injuries, cord injuries. Isn't that something?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That engaging in the risky behavior. And one of the things they talk about is diving into shallow water.
That is a bad one.
Oh my God.
That is.
You think you're jumping into 20 foot and it's 2? That's going to stop you awful fast. That is the worst.
Yeah. And then again, having certain diseases.
Yeah. I do know with sports, especially nowadays, it's getting more and more where people are way more protective of their being and all of that. But basically what they're doing is sports equipment has gotten much more required,
right?
Or used. We did notice at the rodeo, the NFR, some were using the helmets, others did not.
Yes, so interesting that you say that. Everybody probably knows Kai Hamilton if you watch rodeo at all, right?
Right.
So, and he doesn't, and he had that terrible wreck with the bull. Was on the receiving end of just some bad hits, right? But anyway, so he was saying later, because I'm sure in everybody's mind, it's like, why don't you wear a helmet? Why are you only wearing a hat? Well, he was basically saying that he had tried with the helmet, but it actually threw him off and made it more dangerous for him because it just that the weight of it was a different feel to him for his balance and everything. So I just thought that was interesting because I'm the nervous Nelly that everybody should have a helmet. But
yeah, but when you were young, did you wear a helmet?
No.
And would you see?
I know.
Because I didn't. I had a concussion one time when I was out with Dad and everybody, and I got rocked off my horse, and I still to this day it's fuzzy. But but there was no helmets back then.
Yeah.
And nowadays, and it took me a while to get used to watching people. I was like, oh, you big damn baby, you're fine. Even bikes, they don't let you ride a bicycle anymore without a helmet. But motocross, they have what's called a Liette brace, and it's very, very
supportive.
And your helmet and the brace, trying to do whatever you can to take away part of the risk factor. Yeah. Not everybody uses them.
I think that sports have gotten so much more extreme now too, though.
True.
Like when we were young, like you wouldn't, I don't know, I wasn't doing anything that probably required a helmet on a bicycle, but nowadays.
Right. Well, like my husband always talks about the new motorcycles nowadays are almost dumb because of the power that they have, and people don't respect the power. They think they can handle it. Well, can they?
Right.
And then also like the shock system and stuff.
Yep.
They are so tuned in to how much you weigh and this and that. And I mean, they are built to react, and you've got to be able to hang on to that machine or that animal.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a different world.
For those of the listeners that don't know this about Kevin Lake, he used to be a motorcycle mechanic and actually did suspension on motocross bikes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a very, very fine-tuned situation.
Right. Right.
Very specific.
Complications. There's a ton of them.
Yeah. Bladder control, bowel control, pressure injuries, so bed sore type things, circulatory control, respiratory, bone density, muscle tone, fitness and wellness, of course, sexual health, pain, and then depression.
Oh gosh, depression. We could go on in, and we're not going to, but there's a whole other segment to this about the mental health, because you then have to determine how you're going to recreate yourself.
Right. Yeah, you're starting over, having to relearn everything. And I think it does come down to a decision of what you're going to do with it. So I think that it does take a lot of, it takes a strong-willed person to come through a situation like this, but they're out there, and I have a feeling you're going to tell me about.
I do. I have the
something
most
at the end.
exciting thing.
Yes. So prevention things that you can do, just drive safely. Like you were talking about the diving into shallow water, make sure that if you are diving, you're checking that water level before you just go for it. Do your best to prevent falls, take precautions when you are playing sports. Don't drink and drive. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Don't do that anyway.
I mean, honestly, people.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
Well, see, I have 2 breaks in my lower back from a drunk driving accident. I was not drunk. I got hit by a drunk driver.
Yeah.
Yep.
See how unfair is that? That
crazy.
You've got chronic back stuff.
Yeah. It's weird though, because I've always looked at it as there was a reason that it was me, so that this individual didn't kill somebody else, or there is a reason why I was put in that position.
That is so typically Inga to be looking at the bright side of everything. So part of the reason that I had picked this topic for this week is because on Netflix, there is a documentary called Full Circle. Now, there's also a movie, Full Circle, but it is not the documentary. You got to get on the Full Circle. And what it is, it's about this young man who was out snowboarding with his buddies, and he gets a spinal cord injury. And they call it SCIs, spinal cord injury. So anyway, it takes us through his journey, and then where he took his paraplegic status and then became a big time paraplegic adaptive snowboard racer, jumping things. It's really, sometimes it's hard to watch because you're like, you're really not going to jump off that. Oh no, you are. But anyway,
he's like, nothing's slowing me down.
So where it starts is in Colorado. I think it's Aspen, Colorado. There's this place up on top of the mountain where it's kind of a gorge, rocks, and then this bunch of snow. And once a year they have this event where all of these people will jump off of it.
Oh my gosh.
And the first guy that ever did it, his name was Barry Corbett. And so he was the camel man, you know, the camel cigarettes.
Oh, yeah.
He actually was such a rugged mountaineer type guy. He did all of the things outside, a risk taker about climbing mountains and doing all of the things. And he was the first one to do some kind of a flip. So they called it Corbett's Gulch or whatever it is. Anyway, this kid, the movie's about, actually went up there one time and he went over it.
After he had his injury.
Oh,
wow.
And so that's when people started to notice this kid, and it started to help him recreate himself. So it kind of goes between him and then this Barry. And the daughter of Barry he's since passed. But anyway, she kind of talks about her dad, and anyway, what happens is through his process of rehabilitation, he also then was not a guy to ever literally sit still. And he wrote a book called Options, and he interviewed over 50 different people about their journey of recreating themselves after such a significant change in their life. He actually ended up not being able to climb or hike like he did. He started to kayak because he was able to do that. He had to learn how to flip himself because it's different from somebody that's able-bodied.
Yeah.
But anyway, then he went on to become a publisher of magazines and books on the real living with a spinal cord. I mean, everything and back in the day, a lot of this stuff was taboo because he's talking about these are the catheters that are the best. This is a bowel program. He would bring out sexual stuff. You're not able to do everything like you used to. How about this? And so it's unbelievable. You guys have to watch this documentary. So his book, I actually got it on the internet, and it's called Options. And it's a free library, but you have to sign up, and you could look at the book for an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to read a part of it because I think it really brings together somebody that's living with having to reinvent themselves. And it kind of pulls together this whole topic.
Okay.
But truly, he is my hero. And then this young kid, it talks about the highs and the lows and all of the things. And I mean, it shows him literally up on the mountain having to cath himself because he has to go to the bathroom. So everybody just turns around and he just does his thing to go to the bathroom.
Wow.
Literally shows him in his house having to do a bowel program because he can't poop naturally.
Right.
And so he talks about, I used to be so embarrassed about all this, and now I just have to do it. And
wow.
Anyway, so once a person was severely injured, so severely, in fact, that the person suffered motor paralysis and the loss of many body functions normally taken for granted. It was soon discovered that complications such as bladder infections, contractures, pressure sores, and spasticity were to be added to those trials. Furthermore, the injured person faced a lifetime in a wheelchair, experienced catastrophic disruption of personality, was extremely fearful of future relationships with family and friends, and had no means of support even through the torrent of hospital and doctor bills that failed to reflect this fact. The institution to whose care this person was committed, however, provided all possible care and counsel, and then, through a carefully conceived blend of incentive and disincentive, returned a changed person to a new world. The new world, viewed from a new wheelchair, was bewildering. One dilemma was obvious: to cope or not to cope. To cope meant to work and play and live and love as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. Not to cope meant to refuse responsibility for personal health and welfare, to allow physical and psychological complications to bankrupt rehabilitation. Suicide was even considered, and nobody knew for sure if that was coping or not coping. All the options seemed lousy. We are the spinal cord injured. There are hundreds of thousands of us in America, and about 10,000 more every year. Although 82% of us are male, we come from all races, places, ages, occupations, education, and income brackets. We're all badly hurt, and many of us don't know what to do about living this way. It's a very good thing, therefore, that the world is full of people with injuries like ours who have coped, who are glad they are coping, and who give to the human race a full measure for what they take. And then it talks about the book. This book is for you, because it's all of these inspirational stories. So anyway, this guy chose to cope and had an incredible life after what had happened to him. But it really takes a lot from inward.
Oh, yes.
And I'm just in awe. Of the situation. You guys got to watch the movie. You just have to watch the movie.
Go watch it. Watch that documentary.
Watch it. It's so good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we're just talking about it like we're talking a very heavy topic, but God gives you no more than you can handle. That's his promise.
Yep.
And some of us have a lot more than others, but it's all about choices on how you're going to take whatever your trial is.
Just think about how many people that individual or those individuals have inspired.
Yes.
That maybe were not coping.
Yes.
And now they are.
Yes. That young kid that's in the movie, he actually had been to a dream adaptive program, which is skiing. And actually our local ski hill has that.
Yes. I think Kevin did suspension for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had loved the snow before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And then when he went up there in his new sled ski, he realized he could still love it. And that was pivotal to him.
Yep.
So programs like that are unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't yet subscribed, please do that. You can do it on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. Go like and follow our Facebook page, Apaga Care and Share. Thank you for tuning into Apaga University. Email your good news stories, your verses to either Inga@apagahomecare.com or Julie@apagahomecare.com.
I have one last hot tip from this berry.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Is this your grandma?
It's
not a grandma, but it is a hot tip.
Yeah, it's a hot tip from a gentleman that was a grandpa.
Okay.
So anyway, this was at Lookout Mountain, Colorado in 1980, Barry Corbett. So Barry Corbett's the guy that they named that gulch after. The last hot tip of his book: we crystallize for ourselves and for others the real fact and fear of calamity. If we reinforce this image, we invite sympathy and sorrow. If we proceed apace, we are inspirations to everyone. We should not be afraid to inspire. Our gift to the world is the world's gift to us. Everybody, able-bodied and disabled alike, should take the money and run. So this is a cool guy.
Attaboy.
What a guy.
All right. Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Yep. Have a good day.
The Caregiven name is a registered trademark of the Veritrust Health Incorporated Company. Apaga is not connected to, affiliated with, or endorsed by Veritrust or any of its affiliates.